Okay, so part two of our sort of beginner's introduction here. We're going to get on to the actual making of the game proper um, in the next video. So let's have a little look where we got to here. So you can take a lot more time and make sure this all lines up perfectly if you want to. But I'm just going to give you an introduction here on how we could quickly make a house or a room or whatever. So with so far we've got a floor and some walls. So let's grab the floor by holding down, by clicking on one of the floor tiles, then holding down Control, selecting the rest, holding down Alt. If you aren't copying for whatever reason, it's probably because you are clicking before you hold Alt. You must hold down Alt first, and then you'll get the desired result. Okay, so if we hit play now, so also another thing that I didn't go into in the last video, up here we have sort of like the, if you might call them, like some of the master controls. Okay, so we can access the blueprints, we can access the settings, we can get to the marketplace, we can change which mode we're in, which is something we're going to need to do later. We can, there's a save button, but most importantly is this play button. So if we hit play, it will launch the game as we have it set up. So right now you can see I'm trapped in this room. You may not be trapped in this room if you haven't placed it around your player like I did. You can see my player is in there. So the problem he has now is that he's stuck in there. So what's good about these BSPs, remember we're in the BSPs in the geometry, not in the basics here. So if you set them up with these white cubes, you're not doing it right. You want to come here to the geometry and pick these gray cubes. Now, what I can do with this, so remember this is binary space partition. What that binary means is that it can either be one state or the other. And in this case, it's either solid or not solid. So if I place that block in there, and I'm going to call this door. Now you can either just come onto here and then click it once, and then that's going to allow you to change the name, or you can right click, go to edit, and then go to rename. So we've called this door because, it might get lost if it's just called box brush. And then if we come over, so with it selected, if we come down to where it says brush settings, it'll be set to additive. If you set it to subtractive, it then takes away. Now this is incredibly powerful for just mocking up levels. And if you're into level design and that kind of thing, then you're going to be using this a lot. Now, what you don't really want to leave these BSPs in your finished game or anything like that. It's much more for quick prototyping and doing things like we want to do. So now if we hit play, we can see that we've got a door, we can get through the door, and we can escape. Not that we were in prison. Now it's much too big. So if you want to spend a lot more time on making this house, you could make it double story house. You've got some stairs here that you could play around with. So we could bring in stairs and bring in different rooms and all sorts of stuff. Now, just give you a quick example with these stairs. We've got lots of options over here on the right hand side. So for example, we could change the step length. Let's change that to 50 and see what that looks like. Okay, so that's given us a different shape, or a different overall shape. We can change the amount of steps. So now we've made it loads of steps. It goes all the way up. It's like the stairway to heaven. Etc. Okay, so one of the things, I don't want to get too bogged down and explain all this stuff. Really, the best way to learn about this stuff is just to play around with it. It's really simple. There are more things you can do with these BSPs. For instance, if we go into, if we click on modes here and go to brush editing, then we can select the edges of these, so for instance here, and then manipulate those individually. So you get a little bit more control over the sculpting. So you can do some quite intricate designs if you're just prototyping. But I don't do too much of that, mainly because I don't do too much level design, but I'm sure it's an incredibly useful tool for making quick levels because you don't have to just stick to these basic shapes. You can also, extrude from them and things like that. So we can grab that. Can we grab that? And then click extrude. And then you can pull out, just like you can in things like Sketchfab and stuff like that. So then, you can start making more interesting shapes. And that, but like again, we're not doing too much of that. I just want to show you that the BSPs are extremely powerful for prototyping. So let's get back off this. So go on to modes, and we want to just go on to select mode. Now you can see that we've made some crazy shapes there. Some of them are even hollow. So, play around with that. Just go to modes, go to brush editing, and then, you can play around with that. Get into all kinds of interesting shapes. But we want to go back onto select. So just go onto modes and then hit select. And then what we're going to do in preparation for us making a game, we're going to be learning a little bit about materials and textures. Now, materials and textures are obviously what makes your games look pretty, but they're also what costs quite a lot of your resources from your engine. So, because we've got starter content here, what we can do is we could just click on it and open up the materials. But if we go here to where it says search content, and you make sure that you're in your content folder by clicking up here, and there's nothing, it doesn't say anything else. And then if we just type in MAT, it's going to bring up all the materials for us. MAT. Now we can go through here, and we've got some crazy ones like these science fiction ones, and we've got some grass and all that kind of stuff. So, and in order to apply a material, it's really simple. All we need to do is grab it with the left mouse button and drag it and let go. But for some reason, okay. Drag it on, let go. And then you'll see this pop up, compiling shaders. What that means is that it's just creating the material so that we can see it. Now, I'm just going to apply these materials sort of like haphazardly, just to show you how, what can be done. Now, while it's compiling shaders, you might find that you get some slowdown in your engine, which is normal, so don't worry about that. But yeah, just play around with putting materials on. You'll notice that if we put a material here on this edge there, it's not going to like that, and it's going to sort of stretch the material. Wait a minute while it applies it. So yeah, you can see, look, it stretched it there. So we want to kind of avoid that sort of stuff. But I'm only showing you this because I think it's an interesting, we will be using materials quite a lot. So I just think it's interesting you understand how they work. We can actually go in and fix that and make it the same sort of ratio as this. But that's definitely not something for this video. We can do that down here on the scale. All right. I will just show you that really quickly, actually. So look how it's stretched. Now, this is a bit of a guessing game, but if I change that to, I don't know, 15, keep that and then hit apply, that's going to take a little while, but that doesn't seem to have done anything. So let's, yeah, so I know you can mess around down here, but it's been a while since I've done any textures with BSPs. And like I say, generally the BSPs are only used for prototyping anyway. So you may find that you want to texture them just to give them your prototype a cool look. But in general, you're going to be doing all your texturing in external programs, all your modeling in external programs, and bringing that stuff in. So yeah, so play around with the different materials. Look how some are shiny, some are metallic, that kind of stuff. And then once you've got that, the best thing to do and the funnest thing to play with is the light. So this is the last thing we're going to do in this video and the first blueprint that we're going to make. So what I want you to do is come over to here where it says place actors. And if you can't see this, then you just need to go up here and make sure you're in select. And then you want to come down to where it says lights and just grab a point light and place it in your scene. Right, a light in our scene. Now, if we hit play, we can see the light. Great. But it's not very interesting. So what we can do is click on the light, And over here under the lights options, we can make the light more intense. We can change the light's color. So let's go, yeah, let's go for something like that. Like that. Okay. We can change the attenuation radius, which is this circle around it. That's how much, that's where the light is, can be, where the light affects. So we don't want it much bigger than the house because we don't want to shine outside the house. And then we've got some other objects, some other options that we don't really want to play around with now, but you can just go through. The best way to learn is just to tinker with the different settings, and then you can see what they do. But what we're going to do with here, and we're going to introduce a new concept now, is a blueprint. Now, up here, you can see we have a blueprint option. Now, we're going to click on that, and we're going to open the level blueprint. Now, as a rule, we aren't going to be doing a lot in the level blueprints because for reasons that will become apparent later on, we do the blueprints as separate things, and we're going to be doing a lot of that, so they can be reused a lot. But for this example, we're just going to open the level blueprint. So go to blueprints and open level blueprint. And then we're going to come to this graph editor. Now, we're going to be spending a lot of time in editors like this, so we will get to know a lot about it. But for now, I'm just going to go through this relatively quickly. Now, we need to be able to select this light. So there's multiple ways we can do that. We can literally just click on it, or we could find it over here, and it's called point light. Now, what I want to do is I want to, when in here, I want to right click, and then I'll see here, when I've got it selected, I can create a reference to point light. So I'm going to click on that, and I get this little, what we call a node. And this here is called a pin. And if I left click and drag, I get a wire. Okay. Now this point light obviously has a visibility setting. So from here, I can access that visibility. So if I drag out and type toggle visibility, and we want to toggle of the point light component, because it's called that point light component. All right, so it'll come out here. We'll get this little extra node, but that's fine. And we want to toggle the visibility, but we want to do that at the start of the level. So we're going to come over here to the left, and we're going to right click, and we're going to type, what's it called? Event begin play. All right, so type in event begin, and you'll get this event begin play. It's a red node. It must be a red node. If it's not red, it's not right. Okay, and then plug that arrow into there. Right, so you see that? When we begin play, toggle the visibility of this point light. Now, what that's going to do is just going to, as soon as the game starts, it's going to turn the light off. So let's see if that works. So we should not see a light, which we don't, because instantly it's just toggled off. Now, that's no good for us. There's be no point in actually placing the light there. So let's go back up to the blueprints, open level blueprints. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag off this arrow and type delay. Okay. And we'll leave that delay to be 0.2 for now. And then what we want to do is we want to toggle the visibility again. So I could just drag out from here and type toggle visibility again. But what's easier is just holding left mouse down to create a box. Select them, you know the selector because they've turned gold. Hold down Control C and then press V, and then there we go. We just copied that exact code, and then we'll plug that in. Right, so now what should happen? We should start playing. The visibility should be toggled off because it starts on. There's a delay, then it should be toggled back on. All right, and what we want is that to just keep on repeating all the time. Okay, so we're going to drag out from here and then come back. No, what we're going to do actually is we're going to drag off and we're just going to hit another delay. Leave that at 0.2 and then drag that back in to this toggle visibility. Okay, now what that's going to do is only going to file. Oh, let's have a look. Compile. Okay, and now we've got a flashing light. And that's a very, very basic introduction into blueprints. We're going to be doing a lot more complex blueprints. Now, we've just got a minute left, so What we're going to do is right now the light is complete is always 0.2, right? So there's always it's looks a little mechanical. So in order to give that a little bit of randomness, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our level blueprints, and here on our delay, so on our first delay, we have this pin here. All right, now we can input a float into that pin because it's green, and you'll get to know all the different colors for the variables as we go. A float is a number that can be a decimal as well as a whole number. So it can be any. So that's why we can have 0.2. But if we left click and drag from there and then type random float in range, so just here, random float in range. Now this is really easy to understand. The minimum value, let's set that to be 0.2, and the maximum value, let's set that to be 1. So what we're going to have is at the start of the level, we're going to toggle the visibility off, but then there's going to be a delay, a random delay, between 0.2 and 1 second. And then, we want to do the same here. So all we need to do is drag over that, Control CV, bring it over here, plug that in. And now when we hit, you must come up here and hit compile. And now when we hit play, we have a much more random light. So sometimes it's on for a little bit longer, sometimes it's not. And obviously, if you're doing a horror game or whatever, you want to be able to do that, flashing lights and all sorts. But also, it's just a really easy introduction into the logic of blueprints and how they plug into each other. So just to recap, and what's important about blueprints is that this, right? So these rectangles are called nodes. These different colored circles are called pins, and these things we drag off of them are called wires. Now you always must have a wire going from each arrow. Now sometimes nodes have 2 arrows, so like there might be another arrow here. You don't always need to fill those in, but there always needs to be a connection. This is essentially what's powering one node to the next. And we're going to be doing a lot more of this as time goes on, so you will become much more familiar with it. But yeah, if you followed along till this point, well done, because you've managed to write your first line of code. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to hold down left, drag over all of that, and then press C on the keyboard, and we're going to write a comment. We're going to call this flashing light. Okay, we always want to write comments because later on we'll come back and we'll have forgot what we've done. So what I want you to do now is minimize that. Come up here, hit File, Save All, and it's going to save everything. And then that's it for this one. And we'll get into it. We'll actually get into making the game in the next video. All right. See you later.